Hey folks, this is BestInSlot. Welcome back to our Mods of the Week Spotlight series for Jurassic World Evolution 2. It's been a little while, it's been a quiet couple of weeks, but today we've got 5 fantastic new species and some cosmetics to take a look at as well. Very quick disclaimer, as per usual, mods can cause some save file problems. I will say I haven't had any issues whatsoever since the game stopped updating. You know, it's very sad that it stopped updating, but it seems like we're going to be okay. No Asmodeus today because there's lots of people around in my house and I don't want to do the voice. Okay, let's get started with our first brand new species. You know, it's always a little bit of pot luck as to what colours we get, because I don't really plan it out beforehand. So when the neon light ones come out, I'm always a little bit anxious and hoping we get one of these slightly more realistically coloured renditions. This is Trophonius by Gojira Chief, a tyrannosaurine from the late Cretaceous of Utah. Now, of course, you may well recognise the name of this critter from, well, it came up during Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. There was a corpse. It's like one of the first things we ever saw for Fallen Kingdom was the corpse of Trophonius. And indeed the skeleton, actually. There was a skeleton for Trophonius at Lockwood Manor. Now, whilst we don't have a huge amount of forest material, we don't have a huge amount of fossil material for this creature. There was a very interesting bone bed full of Trophonius found in 2021. 4 to 5 animals all together. I'll pause that for a sec, give you a good look at this lad, or lass, or whichever. And they were all from sort of 4 to 22 years old. It was like a real mixed pack. Now, all of them being together suggests a flash flood. You know, they were killed instantaneously, all of them at once. But the fact they were together also suggests possible pack hunting behavior, or at the very least, group socialization amongst this Tyrannosaurine. And that's pretty exciting because this has actually also been seen in Albertosaurus and Daspletosaurus, other Tyrannosaurines. So, you know, it seems like Tyrannosaurs may have had quite developed social behaviors and even possibly pack hunting behaviors as well. Because these are not the gigantic, you know, this isn't your Tyrannosaurus Rex, etc. These are smaller creatures. Trophonius at the very maximum seems to be sort of around that 25-foot sort of marker, probably a little bit smaller. Let's take a look at the mod anyway. Very, very interesting pattern, I'll say that much. This kind of Cthulhu Lovecraftian swirl moving down from the spine is unlike anything I've ever seen on another creature. I think it's really well modeled. I think it does feel like a sort of mid-sized Tyrannosaurian, as it very well should. It's very unique looking. I love this sort of band of black coming down from the eyes on this version. Tons of variety in colour, the way that sort of splays out like that. Just a really interesting pattern. I think the head shape in particular is pretty fantastic. Let's look at the neon one there. You know, really interesting details on the head here with the skull shaping, especially around the eyes, and the way the brow kind of splits off there into like a small eyebrow crest. We don't see a lot of Gojira Chief stuff, so always excited to see some new mods from them. Speaking of which, we have a second Gojira Chief mod. This is Nanotyrannus, and I think this one is much more successful. Already you can see how we've got that counter shading underneath the body, and that's really given the dinosaur just a lot more life. It looks a lot more realistic because of that, so I think that's a really good idea to include that. But again, we've got a very unique pattern, this kind of splayed grasping hand down the spine, and this much more sort of pale, verging on albino sort of head brace sort of area. It's very, very interesting in its patterning, and again, very unique. This is another Tyrannosaurine, but it looks completely different, even though it's roughly similar in size. Look at that head shape. Way, way different than the Trophonius we just saw. So, Nanotyrannus, a controversial dinosaur to say the least, because it may or may not exist. And that's a debate that's raged for hundreds of years, well, not hundreds of years, but nearly 100 years now. So there was a skull found in Montana that was classified way back in the 1940s as Gorgosaurus. And then it was re-examined. People were fine with that. Like, it's a Gorgosaurus, get over it. And then 40 years later, it was re-examined by a slew of high-level paleontologists. and they reclassified it as a new species, a new genus in Nanotyrannus, the dwarf tyrant, because it's a teeny tiny tyrannosaur. Then in the late 90s, another study, well, it's actually not that teeny tiny compared to some, but you know what I mean. Then in the late 90s, another study decided it was actually a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex specimen. And that's really been the battle ever since the 90s. Is it a valid genus all on its own, or is it indeed a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex specimen? I'm of the opinion, my very uneducated opinion, that I think the differentiating factors for Nanotyrannus are maybe not so distinguished that we can call it a separate genus, and it could just be basic, you know, bone distortion that happens over time, or fossil distortion I should say, and regular morphological differences that occur between animals anyway. But there was a new paper just this year, 2024, that suggests Nanotyrannus might not even be a member of Tyrannosauridae. Basically, nobody's got a goddamn clue. We're all just making it up as we go along. Whether you want to believe in Nanotyrannus or not is completely up to you, but either way, it's a very cool mod, and I think it would work really well as like a juvenile... What have you all gotten? It would work really well as a juvenile Rex specimen, in a way, in a sort of Rex family habitat sort of thing. Speaking of juveniles... Sort of looks just like a Utahraptor, but let's go ahead and grab another Utahraptor for a little... I like this one over here. We've got this lovely extra little detail. It looks like a beak. Let's grab ourselves another Utahraptor. Make sure we're on the first cosmetic set, and there you can see a bit more of a difference. So this is the... It's a very loud dog outside. This is the... Shush! This is the baby Utahraptor mod by Viral Cyclops. You'll remember that in the last video I did try to showcase this. We saw a couple other fantastic baby dinosaur mods from Viral Cyclops, and unfortunately I was having problems with the baby Utahraptor. This one looks like it's been huffing paint to me. Either way, it looks like it's been updated. It seems to work absolutely fine. I've had no issues whatsoever, so that's really, really cool to see. And now I can fully recommend it. As you can see, it's not that much smaller than the adult Utahraptor. It's roughly comparable in size. Well, it's not comparable. You know what I mean. It's smaller, it's a juvenile, but it's not teeny. Oh, they're going to do a mixed social animation. Ah! That's when I get impressed, when the social animations work, even though this is, you know, 2/3 of the size, if that. And there is actually an alternate version, which I'm going to try to show you. There's two versions of this mod, just like there was with the other baby dinosaurs. So you've got your adult, you've got your juvenile. I'm going to pause it for a sec, and then you've got another juvenile. And I think the difference is mainly, this one's been, so the one you saw was this one. It's more like a rescaled version of the adult. That's the one I just showed you a second ago. But as you can see with this one's actually the better one. I'd recommend using the alternate. This one has the snout brought in a little bit. The snout's a little bit stouter. It's a stout snout. And you can see the eyes are a little bit larger as well. That classic sign of being a baby. Your eyes are too big for your head. So this one looks more young, essentially. You know, it's had morphological differences rather than just the shrinking. But as you can see, they can still social animation with each other perfectly between the ones of the same size, which is pretty fantastic. Again, you could claim morphological differences here. Before that, one more dinosaur to check out, I should say. So this is the 5 Deaths Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex, a new cosmetic by Ben124, Loco Jung, and Non, meant to be 100% accurate to the animatronic. Now, I've been covering Jurassic World Evolution mods for a long time, so I've seen about 20,000 mods that claim to be the animatronic accurate Tyrannosaurus Rex. But this one's got some really talented people behind it. Like, all the people I've just mentioned are some of the best modelers and texture makers and stuff out there. So we're going to do credit to the mod, and we're going to do a direct comparison between this, which, as I say, is just a cosmetic. You know, it just comes in as a skin for your Tyrannosaurus Rex. And we're going to add a default Rex as well. We're going to compare it directly with the default Jurassic World Frontier Rex. And, well, actually, I'm going to try to compare it with it should be that one, right? There we go. There is a comparison between the two. So I will say the skin already is a fairly monumental upgrade. I think the higher contrast with the lighter and dark sections looks really, really good and does feel more accurate to the film. What other differences do we have going on? Let me bring these a little closer together and we'll observe the head predominantly, like so. Thank God for cryogenic, let me tell you. So we can do a really direct comparison between the two. I see we've had changes to the eye color there as well, and details around the lips, I would say. I think the snout's been elongated somewhat. I will say I much prefer this the 5 depths version. I do think it looks a lot cooler. From the front, it feels more aggressive. You can see that the head is thicker, and I think the brow ridge has been widened out a little bit and is also jutting up a lot more. I think the middle of the snout as well is sharper in this version, but the indent here is maybe a little bit sharper as well. That comes in further than this version. It feels more aggressive in a lot of ways, and it feels more in line with that original Jurassic Park Rex, which of course it's based on. I think the colours are the main benefit, but I've got to say, I think it looks pretty fantastic, and it's one of those things where you may as well just use it. You know, it's a fantastic looking version of the Rex. It looks really, really good, so I just want to do a bit more of a direct comparison between the full-scale puppet animatronic for Jurassic Park, I should say, for the first film, and what this version looks like. And you can see that it is much more akin to what it looks like in the film, especially, again, in the coloration, as I've said. I feel like they're much more similar. Okay, folks, somehow in my infinite wisdom, I went to edit the video and put it all together and realised I'd forgotten a creature. So one last species to show you, and we're heading into the water for this one. Okay, they got stuck in the hatchery, but I've moved them away. So this is Baracudasauroids by Utahraptor Studios, i.e. Trippy13, of course, a name you will recognise. This adorable little thing. Now, I had a whole paragraph written out about this, but unfortunately I deleted it because I forgot that I hadn't released it. So I'm going to give you the information I remember from the top of my head. This is a type of ichthyosaur from the Middle Triassic of, I believe, China. And it's what's called a Mixosaur or something like that, which was an early grouping of ichthyosaurs, most of them quite tiny. You can get a feel for the size of this thing. It is teeny tiny. And, oh, we social animation. Oh, it's very cute. And because this is Triassic, you know, this is early in the developmental stages of ichthyosaurs in general, it's kind of, you can see by the shape, it hasn't quite developed that dolphin shape that we would get with later ichthyosaurs that became more and more common with time, wherein, you know, a modern ichthyosaurus is very dolphin shaped. Now, when ichthyosaurs first started to appear, or at least their predecessors, they were eel-esque in body shape, basically, and the mixosaurs, and therefore Baracudasauroids, in turn, were like one of the first to start developing actual flipper-shaped limbs to help them traverse through the water. But that's why this has such a sort of long cylindrical shape and less of that dolphin-esque shape that would develop over time. And a really cool little mod, yeah, really interesting creature, really unique. Love the skin patterns, I think they look really good. That sort of metallic sheen you would want on a deep-sea aquatic sort of creature. And some really, really nice colour combinations. I think these two in particular are really good. And this one over here, this darker one, looks absolutely fantastic. Big fan of that one as well. So shout out to Trippy13 and Utahraptor Studios. I don't bloody know. Either way, a fantastic addition to your aquatic parks. And, you know, a really good creature to feed to your larger aquatics, let's be honest. But there's so many different sort of iterations of the Rex out there, it's hard to say for sure, but either way I think this is a fantastic looking dinosaur and a set of really cool mods. By and large, if you're checking out some mods, I'll link them all down below. Download these for yourselves and make your Evolution 2 look even cooler. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I will see you lovely folks very, very soon. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye.
Road.